Okay, we're ready to roll. Welcome to Prevue InFocus Live, episode number 7, Being Entrepreneurial in the Meeting World. An exciting topic and certainly one with tremendous growth. I'd like to welcome all of our participants from all over the world. Glad you're with us today. And stay with us through to the end of the program because we have a fabulous drawing for a $100 Amex gift card. And we'll have that announcement as we move to the end of the program. But let's get started and meet our guests. And they are, first up, we have Sandy Daniel. Sandy is President and CEO of Firelight Group. Sandy, welcome. Would you like to say just a few words about yourself and your company?
Well, certainly, Firelight Group is a group. That's hence why we called it a group. It started out as Fire Incentives, and I purchased a company in New York called the Light Group, and we merged those two companies and ultimately called them the Firelight Group. And under our group, we do engagement strategies and consultation with companies. We do incentive programs, both travel, merchandise, debit card, any types of solutions there. We do meetings and corporate events, large productions, just basically anything and everything having to do with motivating and generating engagement among employees and customers.
Great. Glad you're with us, Sandy. And Sandy represents the side of the business where she's acquired and growing an industry-based business. Let's meet Dalton Bennington. She's starting from the ground zero and moving this business forward. Dalton Bennington, she is CEO of Bennington Meetings and Motivation. Dalton, you've been with us before, but for those of you who haven't met her, would you, Dalton, please give us a few words about your background and your company?
Absolutely. My background is as a corporate planner for 20 years, managing and leading an internal consolidated department for a $3 billion company. I made the decision to start my own company a little over a year ago and am focusing on meetings, incentive programs, and really giving quality customer service to each of my clients and whatever their needs are, which has ranged from meetings, incentives, as well as internal communications and engagement, and helping organizations rebuild culture after acquisitions, because a lot of my background has been in acquisitions.
Very interesting. Two different sides of being entrepreneurial in the mice industry, and we'll get to that in a moment, but let me just remind everyone that this program as well as past programs are available on to be seen on the Prevue Magazine website, the iMeet website, also YouTube, and the audio available on iTunes. So all of those opportunities are available for you to tap into seeing programs, listening, learning, and also connecting with each other. So what does it mean, Sandy and Dalton, to be entrepreneurial in the mice industry? What makes it unique? What really does it take to be an entrepreneur in the mice industry? Let me start with Dalton, since she's starting from ground zero and building a company, and then I'll come to Sandra.
I think it's scary, which is probably not the right answer. Truthfully, for me, it was the next step in my career path, and it was a good opportunity for me. What I think it means is being completely accountable and responsible for not only yourself, but the partners that you're working with, the colleagues that you work with, as well as the clients that you're serving. It's really being able to balance all the needs of the stakeholders for the events and meetings and incentives that you're creating, but at the same time being accountable for yourself, your actions, which you might say, well, I do that anyway in my own job, but it's a bit more exponential because at the end of the day, you're the one who's writing all the paychecks, paying all the bills, and required to be as fiscally as responsible as you possibly can while ensuring everyone's needs are met. It's different. I'm enjoying it.
It's a bigger balancing act, huh?
Yeah, a little bit more so.
Okay, let's ask the same question of Sandra. Sandy.
Well, I come from a corporate background where I did a lot of corporate level projects where I started new product lines or got a team together and put together a new concept. So fortunately, I had a bit of a training ground from having done this with somebody else's money first time around. So that makes it a little easier, but still scary, as Dalton said, because the difference is when you go out on your own, you pay yourself last. And the reality is I'm the lowest paid person in my company and probably will be for many years to come. But you have to surround yourself with good people if you decide to expand to the point where you have a staff. I think that's number one. And you have to engage those people in the same vision that you have. So it can't be all about you. It's got to be about the business and the company and what you want to achieve. We're a very for example, we're very community focused at the same time that we're trying to build a business. We're still trying to give back to our community. That's important to engage the people that I work with every day. I think the other thing is that years ago I heard this saying, but if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you definitely have to have a plan. You can't just open the doors one day and say, well, let's hope the business comes. And it's very, very easy to get distracted from that plan. I'll say the difference between starting up an operation in this industry versus other industries is this is quite frankly a very sexy industry. I mean, oh, there's a fam trip here. We were just talking about going to Australia and Spain. It's very easy to say, oh, sure, I'll come down to the Caribbean for a weekend. But what happens when you take up too much of that time doing those trips is sometimes you lose your focus on what you need to be doing. And so but at the same time, you need to experience new destinations to be good at what you do. So you have to get that part of it balanced really well. So there's a lot to do, and I would say if you want to have a personal life, you might want to think about going into business for yourself, because you have to put a little bit of that stuff on hold for a while at least until you get things going.
How do you go about finding and securing clientele as an entrepreneur? It's different when you're in a corporate environment or a business or an ongoing mice company that's been in a business, let's say 10, 20 years or so. But when you're starting out or you're acquiring a business, how do you develop that clientele base, which becomes hopefully more than one-off, becomes repetitive, and then obviously bread and butter, and then there's the issue of retention. So either of you, jump in there.
Well, I would say that there's a number of ways to get clients. Obviously, one of them is to acquire a company like I did. That helped. But acquiring someone else's business does not ensure that that relationship is going to stay intact. So another one of my little sayings is people do business with people they like. So if you do not connect well with someone, even in the short run you might get the business, but in the long run it's maybe not going to be quality business. So even though it's really hard to say no to business sometimes, it is often the best decision so that you can focus on I'm sorry, my little chime just went off on my computer. Sorry. So you really need to really focus on relationships, and those relationships can come from people you already know. I also think that if people can see you do what you do, you get more business that way than any other way. So when we're doing an incentive program and the participants happen to work for companies that also do incentives, they say, wow, I've been on these trips before, but I've never seen it done like this before. You guys are amazing. I'm going to tell my VP of sales to call you, blah, blah, blah. Really hard to get them there, but if you can show them what you do, that's probably the best way to get a client.
Dalton, any points there?
I think what Sandy said is absolutely perfect, and I couldn't agree more. For me, obviously, I haven't acquired a company. I'm trying to build mine from the ground up. I was fortunate that I was able to I am able to work with a lot of the executives that I worked with at my past company. They have all moved into other companies, so it's kind of the best of worlds. I have very familiar executives that I have a relationship with that know my standard of work. I know their expectations well, but I also have a lot of new attendees and new meetings and things to focus on. So that's been very helpful. I also believe in industry involvement, giving back to the industry, networking with your peers. Sandy's actually referred business to me on a smaller program that was local that the client really wanted somebody in Florida to manage their event and forwarded him to me. So Sandy, thank you for that. I think oftentimes you can be surprised where your business does come from. Attendees from incentive programs that I've planned in the past have, embraced their entrepreneurial spirit, started companies, and have reached out to me from their experience as attendee at meetings that I've done. Also kind of picking industry verticals. If that's something that you're really interested, if you have a background in, pharmaceutical planning, going into pharmaceutical association meetings to meet those clients that don't have internal departments is a good idea. So since I don't have the pharmaceutical background, I'll share that as an example.
Pharmaceutical is really a tough area because you've got to be on top of those rule changes constantly.
Yes. So my background being in HR, that tends to be a little more my world, but lots of opportunities out there.
How do you balance seeking new clients or showcasing your skills with the demands of running programs and keeping existing clients happy? How do you decide how to make that balance, or how do you make that flow happen?
No, I don't think I'm perfect at it. Still finding my way through that. I tend to spend my business development time when I have time, and need to make it more of a priority than I have. I've been more focused on maintaining the clients that I do have, meeting their needs, and juggling the new business. So Sandy might have better answers than I do on that one.
Well, first of all, under-promise and over-deliver. One of the things we've had to learn the hard way is, especially our staff being all good-hearted Midwestern people, we like to say yes to everything. And then when they ask for it, we assume they want it in 5 minutes. So we try to deliver it immediately. So we've had to learn to discipline ourselves a little more and say, I can get that to you by Friday. I believe I can get that to you by Monday. And, then if you get it to them on Thursday or Friday, that's great. So I think it's stopping, taking a breath, and realizing that all the things that people ask for, they're not necessarily expecting you to do immediately. And that helps you balance a little bit, too, and schedule your day in such a way that you're not thinking that everything's a priority and walk in the office feeling overwhelmed from the minute you get there, knowing that something can wait and I can get to that later in the day or whatever. I think that helps, and that's a discipline that I have to tell you, frankly, I've had to learn, and I'm certainly not perfect at it, but I try to get better at it every day. It's structuring your day.
Sometimes just taking a breath makes a big difference. I mean, just clearing your mind for a moment so you can focus and make those effective decisions. I mean, because once they're coming, those requests can be piling up pretty quickly. We have a question from the audience. This comes from Frank Robinson. Are you, either of you, involved in PCMA or FICP or other industry orgs that help you find business? Very good question. Either of you, jump in.
I'm not involved in FICP. FICP, even though I actually have an insurance company background, you need to be an independent in order to belong to FICP. I'd love to, but they won't have me because I have other clients, unfortunately. But I know they're, from what I've heard and the people I've known from that organization, it's a top-notch organization. PCMA involved with a little bit, but not a quote-unquote member. DAHLTON and I are both on the board of the Incentive Research Foundation, which is a cause near and dear to both of our hearts, and that's really using research to validate incentives and why people should be doing all types of incentives, of course travel incentives included. And we're involved, I think, in Fight a bit and MPI, and absolutely all of those organizations are great ways to find clients. I would only caution that when you're attending those events, that you don't come off as, I'm here to find business, and the minute you find a big company corporate end user, all of a sudden you see 5 planners on them. It's not the way to get business. Again, it's back to developing the relationship, finding people that you connect with, and the business will naturally flow from there.
You love what you do, and that radiates. And people are drawn to that expertise, centering, basic business knowledge, and of course, mice industry knowledge. That's a good segue into a question that I'd like to ask both of you, and that is branding and marketing. How do you go about branding yourself, and what is your philosophy on branding and marketing, which is a core element of business development and being an entrepreneur? Dalton, from the newbie side.
The newbie side. For me, as a new company, and really the sole and only proprietor of my company, the brand is really my personal brand. So one of the reasons why I decided to use my name in the company for Bennington Meetings and Motivation is I felt that I had a recognizable name, that I was respected in the industry through my involvement in giving back and meetings and events that I planned over the years. And a lot of my branding really is my personal brand, and I just stay true to that integrity in who I am and what I want to represent. So that was somewhat easy for me. My logo happens to be my signature. So it's just, of course I wanted a green, my favorite color. My graphic artist was like, it needs to be pink. So you definitely take advice from those who know best. I know I had a lot of input on it, but really I think it's focusing on what's important to you and being very truthful with yourself on what that brand is, because it's something that you need to live with every day, and it needs to be consistent and constantly in front of everyone else as well.
Well, and it represents the promise of the quality of service, of course, that you deliver. Sandra? Sandy?
Well, I would echo everything that Dalton said, of course. But I idolize Dalton. Anyway.
You too, Sandy.
Yeah, mutual love. So I think that, first of all, Dalton's right on with personal brand. I think that as much as we'd like to think it's about our company and all the services we provide, I think very much of it is about back to the people do business with people they like and people they trust. And I think the biggest piece is trust. And so I try to be a trustworthy person. I try to do what I say I'm going to do. And that's part of my personal brand, and I believe it's part of the brand of our entire company, because I would say every employee on our staff I could say the same exact thing about. So I think it's really important to do what you say you're going to do, follow through, create a level of trust, and that's really what your brand becomes. Your brand becomes your people, and I think we have the best people. I mean, I was very fortunate when I started my company. I had a very good friend who won all kinds of national awards for design. So she did all my logo work and all my graphic design for, a couple of bottles of wine. It was great. So, but find friends that can help you with those things, especially early on when you're starting a company. You just don't have, $50,000 to go to an ad agency and set up a complete look and feel and, all of that. It's great if you've got the kind of money to do that, but I chose to keep out of debt from day one and keep our company viable in the sense that I wouldn't have to worry about, losing to creditors and in the company. So I think that's also it becomes part of your brand that we are, we operate very carefully, low overhead, good Midwestern work ethic, trustworthy people, and I think we do that every day in what we do and demonstrate that. And that's the best you can do with a brand, I think.
Both of you well said. We're living in an era now of tremendous growth in the social media, new media. It takes time, it takes effort to wade through the myriad of opportunities. Some of them are pretty clear-cut, others maybe less so, and there's such a variety. how do you go about assessing what social media, if you use social media, you use, and any insights into the use of social media and new media? Dalton, I know you're a whiz kid at some of the new media because that was one of our last programs and you were on it. So why don't we start with you and then I'll come to Sandy.
I know Sandy's snickering at that. I am a huge Twitter fan, which is not something most people my age say. I look younger than I am. I love Twitter for Business. I think it is an amazing tool for meeting professionals to be able to leverage. I use LinkedIn, great for connections. I think it's the most fabulous Rolodex on steroids that ever existed. Facebook I use more personally. Back to Twitter. I love it because it's a great way to be an advocate. You can pick the voice that you want and really develop your personal brand with that. I have not been as good at tweeting as I should be, but I am known and have followers for as an advocate for the incentive industry and showcasing positive incentives or positive statistics about incentives and the performance that they drive. As a meeting professional, I follow destinations where I have meetings, destinations that I'm interested in having meetings, as well as partners that I want to be able to use for meetings and events that are going on. So it's a great way to stay connected with locations and destinations that you're doing with by hearing from their local city and government sites. One of the examples I used was a meeting that I had in the Nashville area after the flood. It was great to constantly get those insights about those meetings. So that's been very helpful. From the entrepreneurial spectrum, I show my Twitter feed on my website. By gaining new followers and getting connected with new people, I think that helps drive business. I think it also helps show you as a subject matter expert in the field that you're within. I don't think it is a single solution. I think it is a part of a package of solutions that one needs to maintain their brand, to develop clients, and just to stay connected within the industry.
Sandy?
Well, I like Dalton, and Dalton has helped me with this actually over the years. I've really adopted Twitter as sort of my favorite as well. For me to get anything in 140 characters is a daily challenge. So to begin with, it's a good lesson because it helps you whittle down. So what's the real issue or what's the real point I'm trying to make? I don't tweet every time I find a good parking spot, or I use Twitter basically for just sharing industry information. Back to the IRF that we're a part of, we get lots of great industry statistics and information. So I try to tweet that out as much as possible, and I use LinkedIn, of course, a great professional connection, and I think that Facebook, I really believe, belongs in the personal realm, and I keep it there as well. But the thing with social media, and I think the way I think of social media that helps me put it into place is you have your brand and you have your company, but social media helps you ripple that out. We were just at an IRF event where people were tweeting, and I think there were 315 people there. And at the end of the meeting, and Dalton, I don't know if you remember hearing this number, but it was something like we had 30,000 people that sort of heard about our event through tweeting and LinkedIn and Facebook and other social media. So you can take something small and grow it.
Yeah, I think it was higher. I think it was like 150,000.
Oh, maybe.
Do either of you use LinkedIn?
Yeah.
On a regular basis, other than you do? Some of the participants are piling up questions, so let me go through them. I'll ask a polling question first, and while we're getting the results, I'll ask a couple of the questions that are coming in from our participants around the world. First poll coming up. Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur in the mice industry? So this is the group of folks that are actually participating today on our program, or with us in the program. We've got about it's adjusting 50-50, yes and no, 50-50, yes and no. So very interesting. Some are already entrepreneurs and some are wanting to become maybe entrepreneurs. Little less now. We're locking in. Okay, 46.6% yes and 53.3% no. So that's a very interesting look. It's actually higher than I expected in the entrepreneur already category. So let's move on to the next polling question. As an entrepreneur, what is your biggest challenge? Marketing and branding, operations, client retention, or return on invested energy and time, ROI? While we're getting those results, let me ask, let's see, this one comes from Frank Dalton. Do you struggle with visualizing the growth of your new company and what that will look like as you grow the brand and business levels? Biggest challenge in this, how do you face it and overcome it? All in 146 characters.
I might need 3 tweets for that.
Okay.
There are all kinds of struggles with a new business. As far as my vision for the new company, I think it's pretty consistent. I think it's setting that goal and working toward that goal. And I think the goals that one sets for a business are very individual. I think it depends on really what your focus is. Mine has never been to be a billion-dollar company. I really like the fact that I'm a smaller business that can devote a lot of time to my clients and also have a lot of personal life. As for those that were on earlier, I just got married, and it's nice to have that flexibility. Having been in the corporate world for so long, working, on average 60 to 80 hours a week, it's kind of nice to take a breath from that. So for the vision of my company and the brand, I don't really struggle with, because I feel very set in what that is and am very comfortable with what that is. Whether in 2 years from now that'll change, it might. I think probably one of the biggest challenges that I faced is, am I really committed to doing this? God, it would be so much easier just to go get a job with another company. Or, is it too scary? Is this what I really, really want? So for me, I waffled a lot. I don't really waffle anymore, but every once in a while I consider it. And I think it's just, it's really having the confidence in yourself to do it, having the support of those around you and your peers to really stick with it too. I think that's probably the biggest challenge, and it gets easier every day.
Well, that flows into the response to the poll. As an entrepreneur, what is your biggest challenge? And it looks like marketing and branding came in at 50%. None in operations, client retention 16.6%, and return on investment 33%. Marketing and branding by far seems to be the biggest issue. Sandy, when you start a company, this comes from Lindsay Riley, and you're starting off on your own. How many years, she asked, do you think one should have in the field before leaving corporate? And does that have an effect on your marketing?
Well, of course, I think that varies by person and your background and all of those things. But definitely think you should have, 5 or 6 years in a corporate environment, long enough to know it's not where you belong. It took me 17 years to figure out I always kind of knew I didn't belong there, but I fortunately was in a job in corporate where I was allowed lots of autonomy and lots of flexibility. And as I said earlier, I was able to start up product lines and sort of develop my own little companies. So that probably kept me engaged far longer than I would normally have been. But I would say your average person out of college, starting maybe from that point, should have at least 5 or 6 years in the corporate environment. And I think I'm not talking about just in a meetings background or a incentive background, but in a corporate environment where you've been involved in strategic planning for the organization, you've been involved in operations, you've been involved in customer service, and because all of the pieces of any big business are also the pieces of a little business. So if you don't have a good grasp of all those different pieces, you're going to struggle starting out, like the poll just said, marketing and branding. So if you haven't spent any time in corporate and marketing and branding, only in the meetings department, you've got a narrower view of that bigger picture. And so I think you just need to seek to round yourself out in those areas that you maybe didn't get the background. And just so you know, I started my company after spending some time helping a friend get his company off the ground, but I had never been in the incentive industry. I had always worked as a marketing director in an insurance company. So I was the client. I was not the person that delivered meetings in my organization. So I jumped on the other side of the fence and became the provider of someone like myself in corporate.
So you have experience wearing both hats, which is invaluable.
Mm-hmm. It helps.
We have a follow-up question to the Twitter question earlier. This comes from Catherine Manfred. She asks, how do you gather that kind of stat, 150,000 people hearing from your event through Twitter? I think it's through leveraging the number of people, right, who were Twittering? Tweeting.
Yeah, the statistic came from our social media buzz team from Red Button. They were controlling the feed, and basically based on the number of connections of the individuals that were tweeting and by the number of tweets that happened from the different individuals at the IRF. I know last year I was one of the most valuable tweeters, and I had contributed about 150 tweets last year. This year, I wasn't even in the top ranked valuable tweeters, and
wow.
They hit over 200. Some of our top tweeters hit over 200 tweets in one day. So that statistic mainly came from the number of connections, exponential by retweets, and followers that they had.
And I would
but it was definitely a guru.
I would add,
Sandy?
I would add to that, Virginia, the other thing that I think made it very successful is having a very large screen where there's a constant Twitter feed scrolling in front of the attendees. So they see their tweets up on the screen, and they say, oh, that's cool, I'm on there, okay, I'm going to tweet again. And that, I think, really engages the audience to keep tweeting. And then, like Dalton said, having a little award at the end, you know, most valuable tweeter, VIT, that sort of thing, really, believe it or not, makes a big difference. People are competitive. They like to see them, you know, their tweets out there.
Everybody would be competitive for Maui Trail.
We call that an incentive loop, where they get positive vibes from seeing themselves either on the screen or tweeting or, you know, whatever it is, that becomes self-reinforcing. Let's see. I have lots of questions, but let's get the questions from our participants. Marie Johnson, she asks, I just graduated in January as an event and wedding planner, and I'm starting my own company. What should I look into as far as memberships? Very interesting question. There are lots of associations within the industry, the mice industry. Either of you, which would you recommend for Marie?
I would recommend NACE, National Association of Catering Executives, because if your focus is on wedding planning, it will help you to foster relationship with those caterers. At the same time, catering companies can help refer business to you. If your focus is more on the event side, might want to consider ISIS, International Society of Special Events. I am a huge fan of MPI, Meeting Professionals International. At the same time, they're not as big in the wedding side. I'd also look at different venues that have wedding showcases as a also opportunity for you to get business. But you know, look what's strong in your area for where you live and what will give you the best bang for your buck. Because as a new company, you really need to be careful in what you choose to belong to, from a financial standpoint, but also from a time commitment and getting involved, because to really get the value out of any membership organization that you belong to, you need to be involved in it and not just pay a membership due.
And I would add to that.
Sandy, any follow-up?
Oh, yep. I would add to that your local CBB. And if you're, I'm not sure if you're looking just to do weddings in your immediate area, or if you're talking about, you know, destination weddings, or exactly But if you're focusing on your local area, definitely make some connections with any local DMCs, your CVB, and your local hotels and venues that would hold weddings, because those people get questions, and even the CVB will get a question, and they don't want to do meeting planning. So believe me, I'm sure they're happy to have people they can refer that business to.
And concierge, offices of concierge at hotels are invaluable as well. They are connected to everyone in the community. Let's see, we had a follow-up note. The last poll may be skewed because there were no sales options to be clicked. And so some people are clicking marketing and branding for sales. Sales, let's get to that. We touched on that a little bit in terms of client, expanding your client base and nurturing those clients. We've had some clients 20 years and more. Sales, do you contract that out? Do you hire from within? Do you hire people to come on board as sales? Do you do it yourself? What are some of the challenges in the sales area? Obviously, sales being important to one's company's bottom line. Dalton, you do it all, right? Or do you contract out?
No, I pretty much do everything for myself. So I look at sales and business development as things that I need to be doing anytime I have time to do it. And I pretty much feel that anytime I'm out anywhere I'm selling. At the same time, I agree with Sandy. I think it's not always walking up to somebody and saying, hey, give me business. It's really building the relationships with individuals and knowing how to leverage your experience and your knowledge to meet and determine what their needs are and then exceed them.
Sandy?
I started out in my company as being pretty much the salesperson, but everyone in my organization is a salesperson. First of all, they all understand that they have a role in sales, and sales isn't just calling people up and asking for business, but it's also reinforcing those relationships every day that we have with those clients. So getting the sale can sometimes actually be the easiest part. Keeping and maintaining the relationship and reselling and proving yourself year over year that you are going to continue to deliver what you sold them is sometimes the harder part of the whole equation. I have a business development manager, and she's awesome. Her name is Sarah, and I don't know if she's listening out there. She's probably busy making follow-up calls, but it is very nice to have someone in your organization that you can kind of give that point to. But on the other hand, I never feel like it's only her job, and I think that everyone in the organization supports her in her role. But if you are starting out, be careful about hiring some real high base salary individual with a quote-unquote proven track record, because you got to be able to deliver whatever it is they go out and sell. And if they don't sell, when do you decide that they're not effective? 6 months down the road, 9 months down the road, and now you're on the hook for $100,000 in payroll and unemployment because you've got to let them go. So I think it's really important to sit down with that person and design that job early on as a low salary job and build it up over time as they deliver results.
Mm-hmm. Good points, both of you. Follow up to the wedding question. There are a couple of associations that Catherine suggests. One is the AACW.org, and the other, that's American Association of Certified Wedding Planners, and the other one is the National Association of Wedding Planners Professionals, which is NAWP.com. So you can check that out. Back to sales, what about competition? Who do you consider, or what do you consider your competition in the MICE industry?
You want to take that one, Dalton?
Sure. I mean, I think everyone is really your competition, but at the same time that they're your competition, they're also your partner. You know, I don't think Sandy and I are ever going to compete against each other for specific business, but we've already shared business. That's not to say that we couldn't in the future. So I think your competitors, I believe, are who you're really, whatever client is putting 2 RFPs out, you're competing against that other person. And I also think in some ways you compete against yourself. You need to make sure that you're delivering the best value that you possibly can to a client each and every time that you're doing something for them. And to make sure that you're giving them year over or event over event, meeting over meeting, the best value that you can possibly give. And if you do the best that you can, really, and you know that you're putting your best foot forward, that's all you can do. And that's kind of where my focus has always been, is if I'm doing the best I can, I can't worry about what everybody else is doing. I need to be more focused on what it is that I'm doing. And I think that helps. But I've also kind of been one that believes that you can play nice in the sandbox. There's enough business out there for everyone. Why not help others succeed as well as yourself?
Good. Sandy?
Well, I agree with Dalton that there's plenty of business out there, so there's no need to be all that concerned about the competition aspect. I guess I don't really know who our competitors are, because I don't really consider anyone in my industry a direct competitor. I have so many friends within the industry, like Dalton, that, if we come up against the same piece of business, we might end up bidding on the same piece of business, and it's happened to me with a few of my friends in the industry. And I had a really good conversation with someone when this happened, and he said, "Sandy, if I'm going to lose the business to anyone, I'd rather lose it to you." And that's a nice, and that's how I feel about most of my friends in the industry. If they win the business over us, there's a reason for that. I also think that that's probably should be your least concern when you're developing your brand and developing your business. Because if you are truly unique, and if you truly provide value in a unique way, you won't really have any competition in your little circle. You'll have your own thing. Right. So I'd say the ones that are kind of our best advocates are sometimes the larger incentive houses that can't handle some of the smaller business, or don't want to handle the smaller business. Or if they do, they don't do a good job, and then they call us. So they sometimes are actually the supplier of business for us.
Now that's a good tip right there. Thank you, Sandy. Catherine asks, have either of you used 100% commissioned salespeople for business development? And if so, range, I think maybe what I should do at this point, she asks follow-up questions in terms of room night fees and return on investment and so on. You might want to connect afterwards among yourselves, which we encourage you to do. But let's start with the base question. 100% commission salespeople? Either of you?
No.
Yes, no, and why?
I don't think you're going to get the engagement from a 100% commission salesperson. That doesn't mean you start them out high, but I would certainly start them with a base salary. One of the things we do in our company is we pay 100% of health care benefits. We do some other things to make life a little easier. We provide lunches at the office. We do, things to make our employees' expenses lower. So even if they take a pay cut to come over and work with us, they get some perks and benefits that kind of make that transition a little bit better. But they have to have we have to have some skin in the game, and they have to have some skin in the game, I guess is the way I would put it.
Well, and in this environment, healthcare is a huge perk. And 100% healthcare is an even better perk. Dalton, any comments?
I have not had a 100% commission salesperson, and I agree with Sandy on that I believe that in order for them to be really engaged in the company, they need to be vested in it. Otherwise, if it's just up to their own, they could be doing that for anyone else too.
Excuse me. Do you say goodnight to the office when you leave?
Actually, I am in desperate need of digital detox. I'm home office, so fortunately it's on the other side of the house, but I sleep with my cell phone. It's permanently attached to me, so I don't really say goodbye now.
Sandy?
I'd like to say that would be a complete and utter lie. No, I don't. So, And I don't think when you're starting a company that you can do that. I think you can cut out time. For me, the best time to actually detox and cut out from the company is very early in the morning. I get up at 6, I check my email, I look at anything that I'm going to have to deal with that day and kind of get that in my day's plan, and then go out for a nice long walk, go out, grab some breakfast with a friend, do something that's not 100% business. And actually, the earlier in the day you can get that in, the better, because often, especially in a small company or when you're starting out, your day turns into 7, 8 o'clock at night. And you kept saying, oh, I was going to go work out, I was going to go do this. And, reality is it never happens. So if you take your time for yourself first thing in the morning, you've got a much better shot at getting it.
Let me ask you, do each of you have benchmarks for this year and let's say a 5-year plan for your company?
Want to go with that, Dalton?
Dalton is laughing. Go ahead, Dalton.
Stay afloat? No.
Keep paddling.
Right? I wish I had a strategic plan. It's kind of funny that I don't. For anyone who truly knows me, I'm probably one of the most organized and fanatical planners. So it's interesting that I don't have one.
We do an annual team retreat, and we spend an entire day and a half, and all we do is think about our future and our plan. And I think the plan has to be jointly agreed upon with the team. Otherwise, it's just my plan and pushing my plan on everyone else, and that doesn't make any sense. So yes, we do have goals. We have strategic goals for the next 6 months, 12 months. Years ago, I was involved a lot in strategic planning. We always did a 5-year plan. I don't even think a 5-year plan makes sense anymore in this environment. I think that the environment itself changes so rapidly that if you can manage to knock out a 6 or a 12-month plan, you're doing well, and be prepared in 6 months to change that plan, because it's probably going to, some big business opportunity is going to come along, and all of a sudden everything you were thinking you were going to do changes. And I think this is very true when you're small. I think the larger you get, the more you can, be a little bit more disciplined about a plan. But I think you do need to have an overall structure and an idea of where you're going. For example,
Absolutely.
Our latest plan was to make sure we focused more locally, for example. So that's
interesting. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Locally meaning in state, in city, in region.
Actually,
which would it be?
All of the above, but more based in our city. And Madison is a great city, and we found out that we weren't doing a lot of our business was national, and we weren't doing a lot of business right here in our own backyard. And we thought, well, how silly is that? We can drive over to their office, sit down, and talk about it as opposed to getting on a teleconference. Why wouldn't we do that? So we have been focused for about the last year and a half on really bringing more local business in, and that's starting to happen as a result of that focus.
Congratulations. We have a question, there's a comment and then a question, from Jerry Goranson. She says, hello ladies, thank you for the very informative webinar. I do have some experience in meeting planning and have been looking for 2 years to find a job as either a junior meeting planner or a meeting planning coordinator. What advice would you give me in landing a position like this? Thank you. Very interesting question, because she can go to a company with might be a startup or a new venture or a corporate environment, or start her own. Any thoughts?
I think being connected, being involved in the industry, networking with your peers. I think LinkedIn is also a great opportunity to see what positions are out there. Think about your personal competitive differentiator and what makes you the best planner, the best hire for organization, and put that forward in cover letters and resumes, in don't give up on it. Just keep pursuing it. Keep in mind that most planning position jobs are very highly desired, and there's a lot of competition for them. As someone who worked in corporate environment for 20 years and did lots of hiring, you know, it's not easy. There is a lot of competition, and it is highly desirable. So just keep persevering and stay true to it, and pilot your own destiny.
Sandy?
And timing is everything. You know, some of the people I've hired over the years, it's just because it happens to be at the very moment I have a need, somebody contacts us, and the timing was great. The other thing would be Successful Meetings magazine just comes off the top of my head. No offense to Prevue. I don't know if Prevue has a job board, but I know Successful Meetings magazine has a job board. I think a number of the media in the trades have some sort of job board, and that would be a good place to look. Also, if a big event is coming up in your community, if you know who's putting it on, contact them. Chances are they're scrambling for last-minute help. Gives you an opportunity to maybe do one day on site and show them what you can do. So look for those opportunities.
We're going to start wrapping it up. We've got a few things happening here, and then we'll close out the show. First of all, we'll announce the winner, and we're going to have a randomized drawing for the $100 Amex gift card. And it's rolling, and the person is Juanita Gaynor. Congratulations, Juanita.
Yay.
I know you'll use it wisely, and Matt Bray will call you and follow up so that he can get that to you. Congratulations, Juanita, and I'm glad you're with us today, by the way. Any tips that you would like to provide as we wrap up in the last couple minutes? As you develop your mice business as an entrepreneur, and any takeaways that you would like to leave for those who are watching. We've got a large chunk who consider themselves already entrepreneurs, and a large chunk who aren't there yet but are considering it. Dalton?
Best advice is probably stay committed to what you want. Don't listen to the negative voice. Focus on the positive voice. Get all your ducks in order. You know, from all the business documentation that you need, all the banking, financial information, and work your way through it. Find other entrepreneurs in your area that will help you through that process. They don't necessarily have to be mice industry, but can just walk you through your state licensing, your operational licenses, and all the different tools and things that you need. And then, you know, find a mentor. You know, Sandy has been one of my mentors as I got my company off the ground, and being able to call her and just say, hey, help me through this. You know, what's that? I don't have an IATA number. Can you help me, please? You know, reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out to a network of friends to help you get through it. And I think that's probably the best advice. So use your network, stay committed and focused, and persevere.
Great. Sandy?
If you have a university, a big university near you at all, here in Madison, we have the University of Wisconsin. You know, go Bucky. Anyway, had to get that in. We have a small business development center, and it is free to alumni to use to get you started and help you with your business plan and help you put those things together. So there are free resources. There's the Wisconsin Women's Business Association. There's probably one in every state. There's national organizations that are really focused on entrepreneurship. I would definitely reach out to those networks. And I would also...
There's also the SBA.
SBA, of course. And then I would also say, ask yourself, am I really passionate about this? And is this what I really want to do? Because you really have to keep that passion, and that fire in your belly will keep you going.
Well, I'd like to thank you both, Dalton Bennington, Sandra Daniel. Really appreciate your being with us. Great program, great insights. Thank you so much. For those of you who are participating, you can watch this program again or past episodes on the Prevue magazine website, the iMeet website, the YouTube site, as well as the audio on iTunes. Thank you so much. We'll see you next month. Take care.